Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome back. Welcome back to another PorscheCooled podcast. It's owner stories again today. We're up to number 9. Thank you for all the support of the owner stories. I mean, they've been really good, actually. Last week's was a great episode with James from Melbourne. This week, we're coming back to the UK, and we've got Barry talking to us very shortly. I'm just going to connect to Zoom and get Barry on the line, so to speak. Barry's from the UK. Barry's owned 2 911s to my knowledge, and he's really enjoying the one he has now. I think it's going to be a good story because I haven't really spoken much about this model variant. I won't let on what it is, but you'll see. Actually, you already know what it is because it's in the title. But we're going to talk to Barry in a second. But this is a PorscheCooled podcast. If you don't know already, my name is Michael Barth. I'm currently in London. This podcast is usually done from Bahrain. I live in Bahrain at the moment, but I'm back in London for a bit. So we're hooking up with Barry via Zoom, and we're going to talk about his PorscheCooled owner story. So just give me 1 second, and we'll get Barry connected up, and we'll start Zooming. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to the PorscheCooled podcast. So this is owner stories, as I said. Today we have an interesting one. We have Barry coming all the way. Well, I don't know how far away Barry is because I'm in the UK, but coming all the way from somewhere in the UK. And hi, Barry. How are you?
Hi, Michael. Yeah, good to speak to you at last. We've spoke a few times, haven't we, on Instagram? But it's and I'm the one pecking your head about GTSs because I think it's been omitted, hasn't it, for reasons you've mentioned on your podcast before now.
Yeah. So as Barry said, we've been talking through Instagram, and Barry gave me a bit of grief way back about not talking about GTSs on the podcast. Not grief, in a nice way, I should say.
Yeah.
But that's just because I guess it's because it's not that they're not on my radar, and I've already given away what you're driving, but it'd be in the title anyway, so people will know. But we're going to get into that very shortly. But I think it's a good one because it's a variant that is very interesting, and I think we should talk about it. But before we get into the car thing, it's actually also very coincidental that Barry used to live in Bahrain. He used to live in Bahrain. He used to work in Bahrain. Is that right, Barry?
That's correct. Yeah, it was a while ago, not probably 9 or 10 years ago. But I worked. My history is I'm an aerospace engineer, so I was working for the Air Force down there.
Fantastic. Yeah, so we have that in common. We both, I'm still living there at the moment, even though I'm in London, but we have that in common. But let's get into the Porsche side of it, Barry. And PorscheCooled owner stories, as I always introduce, it's every Porsche tells a different story, and each owner has, as I say, a story to tell, and that's what this sort of episode is all about. So, the other thing I want to mention about Barry as well, Barry is a Patreon member of PorscheCooled Podcast. Barry's one of the early members, number 6, I think it was, number 6. Is that right, Barry?
Steve said 006, didn't he?
So. 006, yeah, 006. So let's go back. Let's start at the beginning, and I think the owner stories are really good. People like to hear, from the very beginning. What are your first memories of Porsche of 911? Was it something that you always wanted? Was it something that was on your radar, or has it only been in the last sort of few years that you decided, okay, I really want to have a Porsche?
Yeah, I think it's fairly recent, to be honest, compared to your other guests you've had on. I've always been interested in sports cars, and I do recall having a 911 on my wall, as so many of us did back in the day. But I never really realised that dream, never really understood too much about them until a friend of mine got one, and that was probably 10 years ago.
Okay.
And it's only at that point I really had a good look at his, and I really fell in love with it. I thought it was a beautiful shape. It's the 911, by the way, not the Boxster in this case. But I thought it was iconic, and for me, the biggest thing I think was I felt as though it was something I could get in and drive without attracting too much interest. I mean, everybody appreciates the 911. I think that's what's so good about the brand, isn't it? But I don't feel as though if it's not a Lamborghini or a Ferrari, and I think it's a big statement to make that, and I was never really comfortable about making such a statement, I think. But the 911, yeah, that's fine. And I think most people, when you're out and you're driving them, they do appreciate the cars. If they're any sort of petrol head, they do. even if they can't afford one, they all know what it is.
Yeah.
And I get more thumbs up than thumbs down, with it. It's nice.
Yeah, I agree with you, actually. I mean, it's understated. It's understated. It's a great driver's car. It's got great balance, even though the engine's in the rear. It's well balanced. It's got a great driving feeling. And I think what you said then about people, in general, I find when I'm driving my car in Sydney, I find that, when I'm in the 911, I don't really get that much aggression from people. I don't really get that much hate. Most people are quite friendly. If someone will wind down their window, if they're next to you at the lights and they'll say, great car. It seems to be a car that does it does hit at people's emotions. People seem to really like the 911. And I guess that's because it has been around for so long and it is such an iconic shape that really just gets better and better. So your friend had a 911. What did he have? Do you remember?
Yeah, he has a C2S, just like I had and you have. That friendship started actually around cars. We've got there's three of us. Every year we go away abroad, not Porsche related. We're all petrol heads, so we've got a World War II Willys Jeep actually.
Oh, okay.
And we take that abroad. It's great living in Europe because you can get to the continents, which is mainly where obviously the Second World War happened and the First World War. So we take that every year, and it started with that because my friend. We have a mutual friend, a guy called Elliot. I'm sure he won't mind mentioning his name. And he's got a great site, Car Craze Fool, if you've ever seen it.
Okay.
He's got a couple of videos up there, but he's a massive Porsche owner and fan. And I think
it's a YouTube channel or it's a website?
Yeah, it's a YouTube channel, yeah.
Okay. Car Craze Fool.
Car Craze Fool, yeah.
All right, cool.
And I think Steve bought his car off Elliot. And I fell in love with his was silver, and I fell in love with it. And I was pecking his head trying to buy this at one point, but he's still got it now. He's absolutely in love with it.
Oh, really? Still?
And, yeah. So I realised I had to make my own.
So that's 10 years ago, and then you decided, okay, so I want to buy a 911. You said, That's it. I'm back in the UK. I'm not in Bahrain anymore.
No, that's right.
I want to buy a 911. Did you have a model in mind for the first one you bought? So tell the listeners what you actually purchased, and was that the car that you wanted, or did you compromise and buy a different model?
No, it's the car I wanted. I wanted one exactly like his. I wanted a C2. I wanted the 911 C2S. Yeah. So his had the chrono pack. So I knew. Had a good look around his and had a good idea of the spec I wanted. Inevitably, that was a compromise because I don't think mine had the chrono when I actually saw it. Okay. But it had other things that made up for it. I mean, it was a really rare Atlas Grey 911, which made it quite rare. As it's very similar to black, unless you'd seen them side by side. Yeah. Atlas Grey's got a blue hue to it. But it is a rare colour, and because of that, I love the colour.
So the 997 was a 997.2?
No, it wasn't. Sorry, it was a 0.1.
0.1?
Yeah, sorry.
Manual, Tiptronic?
Yeah, manual.
Manual? Yeah. And was it highly optioned, that car, when you purchased it, or is quite standard?
I think it was highly optioned, apart from the chrono.
The chrono pack.
Yeah, it's full leather, manual, but it had PASM, I remember. It had, I think it had the rear wiper as well, which I perhaps wouldn't expect, to be honest. I like the cleaner look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing is about the rear wiper, someone asked me that question the other day. They said, would you spec it? What do you think of your rear wiper? And I said, well, I actually use it. You know what I mean? It's kind of weird. Mine's got a rear wiper too, and I actually use it. But I think if I spec'd a new one, I would do the rear wiper delete. I wouldn't actually get the rear wiper. I think you're right. The line of the car is much nicer without the wiper on the back, for sure. Yeah. For sure. Yeah. So you bought this car. So you bought the 997. So 10. So how old was the car when you purchased the 997?
It was it was 2000. It's a really early one, and all that came with it, if you know what I mean. With it being a really early car. So it was a 2004. It's the very, very first of the 997s.
Okay. Yep.
And I bought it. It was probably 12 years old. 11 years old when I bought it.
Okay. So you had that. You had the 997, and then you decided, I want to upgrade. I want something that's a little bit better, a little bit faster. So what is that the feeling you had? Was that what it was? And then you
I
thought
think so.
Then you started searching for your next 911.
Yeah, there's a whole gap there between purchase and thinking about a new one, though. I mean, I had it 5 years, so I had a few. I didn't have any major issues with the car, and I did do some work on it. I upgraded the LEDs to the lights to LEDs. I also put a different PCM in it. So I enjoyed tackling jobs like that. Nothing too major. I am an engineer, but I don't feel I certainly can't do any engine work. Certainly on the 991.
Right.
And that's. But I
so what did
brakes and stuff.
What PCM did you put in? You put in a Pioneer or a?
Yeah, I did.
Something?
Yeah, it was a Pioneer. Yeah,
right.
I liked it. Yeah, it was good. Touch screen. It was great. I think it was. Needed to happen because it was quite aged inside, I think.
And yeah, I mean, you know what? I still have my Porsche PCM in the car. I haven't changed it. Steve has got the updated system, which I think is a Pioneer as well. I think the CarPlay, which looks really good. It's integrated it's integrated well and it plays well. I don't know. I'm still hesitant to change it over. I'm waiting for Porsche to bring out that what is it? PCCM Plus for the 997. Like they've done for the 996. I'm waiting for that. If they bring that out, I'll buy it tomorrow.
Yeah.
So
I've still got mine in my garage, actually.
Have you?
PCM. The new purchaser of the 997 loved all the work I'd done on it and I was told maybe I should have took it back to standard, took the lights off. I kept everything. But as it happens, the guy loved everything I'd done on it. So what else did you do to the 997, Barry? So you did the PCM. So I did the PCM. I did the upgraded the LEDs to decked in all the lights to LEDs. So that made a real difference. Lowered it. It's got lowering springs, so it had H&R springs on it, which made a slight difference. I like the stance better.
So was it H&R springs with the stock shock absorbers? Yeah,
it was, yeah.
Did you have any issues with your shock absorbers wearing out more quickly or any problems with your shocks during that period you put the lowering springs on?
No, I didn't. Okay. Not at all.
Because that was what I was told. With my 997, I'm pretty sure it's got Tecart lowering springs on it because it came when I purchased my car with 20-inch Tecart wheels and I think it had Tecart springs. Right. But I remember them telling me at Auto House Hamilton, where I take it to in Sydney, they said, it could make your shocks wear out quicker with the springs. Yeah.
I read that. But no, I didn't. In my case, I didn't see anything. There was no leaks. It went through the MLT flawlessly on every occasion. So no, it's fine.
But the springs are a very inexpensive, reasonably inexpensive mod. And it does make a big difference to the car, doesn't it? It really does make the stance and everything about the car. And the handling, the car still handles really well. As long as you get good quality springs, I don't think you have a problem.
That's right.
So
I don't think my wife appreciated it that much. I think I appreciate it. I can see what it did to the car and how it handled, but I was struggling to sell my wife to it. She was struggling. She was saying it was uncomfortable. Plus the manual thing, which all led me towards thinking about maybe another one then, something a bit more.
So you did. So what else? So what else? Before we get onto the new car, what else did you do on the 997? So you did the springs, you did the PCM. Yeah, what about the exhaust? Did it come standard with? I always ask this question with the Porsche sports exhaust with the PSC.
No, it didn't. It had the standard exhaust. There was no sports exhaust feature. So I think you referred to it as a Fister hack, but it's a Gundo here in the UK. You call it a Gundo hack. So it's a bypass to that. So I had that done, and I didn't go mad on it. I had 1.5-inch bore bypass pipes welded on, and that made just the right amount of difference, I think.
Yeah, it definitely makes a difference, doesn't it, to the standard sound? Definitely. It makes it just that little bit better and not overbearing inside, just right.
Absolutely, yeah. And again, something that the new owner really appreciated and bought into.
No, I think it's really a mod that if you buy a 997 and it doesn't have the Porsche sports exhaust, don't go out and spend 3,000, 4,000 or whatever it is on a full exhaust system. The Gundo hack, the Fister exhaust, very similar, both similar mods. They're not that expensive. They've gone up in price slightly. They're not that expensive. I know a lot of people just go to their local muffler shop and get them to weld a pipe on for them, and it's a lot cheaper. So that's the other option with it. But it's a great mod for a 911, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So what else, Barry? Anything else to the 997?
No, that's about it, I think, from memory.
So the 997, obviously you love the car because you kept it for quite a few years.
Yeah.
So no other major issues with the 997? I mean, we always think about this thing that hangs over our head with the IMS, and obviously earlier cars have slightly higher risk of it happening. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what you read.
Yeah, it is. And to be honest, if you read too much into that, you really lose sleep over it because I do feel there's too much on the internet negative about it. My experience was it was fine. I had when I purchased the car, I had a good look at the history, and there was £17,000 worth of bills with the car. Came with the car.
Wow,
so
that's a lot.
Yeah, it had a few owners. I think there's 4 previous owners, but that's not unusual, is it, for these cars? And,
no.
But so £17,000 worth of bills, though. I mean, that's what you want to see, isn't it? When you're buying a new car. So when you buy one of these cars, particularly, obviously it's been looked after. So that gave me a warm feeling, and well, it paid out in my case. Anyway, it never missed a beat.
So when you bought the 997, did you get, and we'll get onto this with your new one as well, but when you bought the 997, did you get a pre-purchase inspection? Did you buy it from a dealer?
No.
What process did you go through?
I didn't buy it from a dealer. I bought it privately, and I've got to say I didn't have a PPI. No, maybe it was a bit of a risk that, but no, I don't think I did. I looked for all the telltale signs. I heard the car from cold when you're on startup. I looked for any blackening in the exhaust or in the left-hand exhaust. Couldn't see anything. Checked the oil consumption a few weeks after having it, and it all seemed fine. So, as I say, I think. But maybe.
And the mileage. Sorry, Barry. And the mileage on the car when you bought it, was it high mileage or was it low mileage?
It was 69,000 miles when I bought it.
Okay, so it's been driven.
Yeah, it's been driven. I think it had been tracked at one point, hence the bills,
Okay. And as they say, and I don't know whether this is true or not, but we always say it, if it's been driven a lot and it's got higher mileage, the less chance of the IMS happening.
Yeah.
Cars need to be driven, and that's what is, it helps if you drive your 911. I don't know whether you listened to our last podcast on Friday, but Steve and I were talking about an image on Autohouse's Hamilton site, our Porsche specialist in Sydney, and they had a picture of the bearing, and it had already shredded. It had already come apart in the car. But basically this car, they didn't say it was a 996 or a 997 or a Boxster, but literally they said the car had no telltale signs. The person that recently purchased the car had no telltale signs, and basically the new owner said, I want to have the IMS solution put on, the LN engineering or whatever. Yeah. And then they took it apart, and then it had already started.
Virtually fell apart, did they, when they opened it?
Yeah, it had already had the shavings of metal in there. So that's I found that a little bit scary, that when they're saying there's no telltale signs, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you never know what's going to happen.
Absolutely. I did listen to your podcast. Yeah, it was very interesting. And you mentioned also in there about diagnosing, I think Steve mentioned oil analysis. And certainly I took my filter apart whenever I did an oil change, cut it up, and obviously look for anything. Couldn't see anything in mine. That's another thing. Gave me a warm feeling about selling it on, because I don't want to sell anybody. Nobody wants to see a new owner struggle, and sell a pup to a new, and expecting a new owner. And the guy was really nice. He was real enthusiast, and I hope he's enjoying it. I think he's a member of the same club I'm in. It's a nationwide Porsche club we have in the UK, and we have exchanged emails since, and he seems really happy with it, which I'm glad about.
Oh, that's good. So you had the 997 Carrera, and then you decided, okay, I'm going to go up the Porsche chain. I'm going to get something better, faster.
Yeah.
So what did you start looking for when you decided I'm going to sell the 997?
Well, the natural choice for me would have been is the 991, and I think it was easier to sell that. I've always liked the air cooled. Don't get me wrong, but it was much easier to sell a later car to my wife, and it is. She enjoys the car as much as I do, so it is a consideration, obviously. And she loved the 991. It's a completely different animal. Inside, it's I'm sure you've seen them. They're a lot more modern car. Plus, it was the PDK that I think that sold it. She has a.
So sorry, Barry. Tell the listeners what you bought. Exactly what you bought. The model, the color.
Okay, so I went for eventually I wasn't quite actually ready for the car, and I'll tell you the story in a second, but when it came up, the spec was just, it was a little too early for me.
Right.
But when the spec came up, I realised I'd been looking for one just like this spec for the best part of a year. I could not let it go, and I think that's what you say, isn't it? Don't wait for the right spec.
Yes. So it took you a year to find the right one.
It did, and you know what? It came up at my local OPC. Porsches.
Because they're very sought after, and they are very rare, aren't they? They're not easy to find in the right spec, and they're not easy to find in general. It seems.
Yeah, that's right. So it's an agate grey GTS.
Yes.
And it's got what really I loved about it was the black interior, deviated stitching. It's got the red deviated stitching, and it's got a few things on it that I wouldn't have expected. Actually, it's got a sunroof, which I wouldn't have expected, but I love it. It's also got and it's got full aero kit as well, which again is an option even on the GTS.
Yeah, I noticed that. It looks really good, actually, the aero kit. I noticed that the other day.
Yeah.
I didn't realize you had. I saw the spoiler on the back, which works really, really well.
Yeah.
So it's very highly optioned then inside. So is it the Alcantara inside, or is it just the leather?
No,
is it Alcantara
it's
and leather?
Alcantara and leather. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, which is a really nice interior.
Yeah.
And the deviated stitch is what color?
Is red.
Red.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So it's picked out a few. There's a few cues to that internally. So it's got the seat belts are also in red. They're not full red. I think James Auto Amateur's doing a full red. He's just recently done a full red seatbelt exchange, hasn't he?
Yeah.
So these are black, but they've got the red. They've got red stitching down the sides. So it's also got a red tacho dial in the middle that picks out in the red stitching. So that's good.
Those seat belts are really nice, actually. You mean it's just got the red trim, so it's a black belt and it's just got the red. That's a really nice seat belt, actually.
That's right. Yeah.
I've seen that in something else. It's Speedster, I think. I think the Speedsters, the 991.2 Speedsters, some of them have that option too. I actually think that's nicer than the full-colored belt, actually. I think it's actually a really nice detail. I have to say, though, the GTS, the 991.1 or even the .2, the interior of the GTS, especially when it's the leather and Alcantara like you've got, and it's got the deviated stitching, is a really special interior.
Yeah, it's lovely.
I mean, it is a really nice interior. And you really notice the difference between the 997 and the 991,
yeah,
I'm sure, when you went from that car. So why did it take... For people out there who, and I know there's a couple of people, there's one person I know, Nick in the UK, was on the first PorscheCooled Owner Stories. He's got his eyes on maybe a GTS.
Is he looking for a 991 or a 997?
991.
Oh, right.
Yeah, 991, I think. Yeah, pretty sure 991, not 997. He's got a 997 Carrera 4S now. Yeah. And he's looking for a 991 GTS. Well, he's thinking about it. Yeah. He's thinking about it. So why did it take so long to find it, a year? Is that because you were just being very particular about the spec, or there just wasn't any available?
I think they are rare, aren't they? They are rarer than the standard C2S, and the standard Carrera. So I did want a GTS, though. There are a few things on the GTS that you simply cannot option on the standard Carrera or the S. The wide body. And it's got such a road presence with that wide body. I just loved it. So that's why.
The wide body. So for people that don't know, I mean, I'm sure there's a few people listening and not 100% sure. What is the difference between the 991 Carrera S and the 991 GTS? what is the actual difference? I know that the two I know for sure is that definitely it comes with a sports exhaust, the GTS, and definitely it comes with the different wheels.
Yeah.
So what are the key differences if someone's not sure about
Okay,
the GTS, what it actually has?
Okay, so it's obviously the wide body. So it's got the turbo body, presumably, without the intakes on the front, on the rear arches, but it's that wide body. There's a GTS Sports engine, so it's 30 brake horse increase on the standard, so it's 430, and I think the standard S is 400. It's got options for the GTS Sports pack inside as well, which is the Alcantara. It's obviously got a different spoiler as well on the front. I mean, mine's a GTS AeroKit spoiler, so again, that's different again. It's also optioned for knock-on wheels, as you've mentioned. So they are a different wheel.
Yeah, the center lock. Yeah.
Center lock wheels, yeah.
Any issues with the center lock wheels? I know I don't even know what the chatter is, but I remember seeing things about people. Some people love them, some people hate them.
Yeah, I can imagine they're okay, but I've never had a puncture, so.
Okay.
As yet, but I have got all the kit in my garage to swap them. But that includes, seriously, there's a 5-foot torque wrench in my garage that I need to take the center locks off with.
Wow.
And there's you've got to use optimal paste, special optimal Castrol optimal paste to reapply every time you take them off, put them back on.
Right.
But I think the look of them is terrific.
Oh no, they're a fantastic looking wheel.
Yeah.
Yeah, it suits the car. It really does. With the wide stands and with those center locks, it just makes it a GT car. You know, it which is what I was saying the other day in the other earlier podcast. It's not really a variant of the Carrera S. It's not really a upscaled Carrera S. It's still more like a GT car. It's still like edges more to that. I'm going to buy a GT3 or I'm going to buy a GTS. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'd like to think so, but I'm not sure I agree.
No?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think I'd love a GT3. Don't get me wrong, but I think it's an out race car that compared to the to the GTS. And I think if you go to any GT events, I don't think you'd be welcomed as much as you would be if you had a GT car.
Yeah, I understand.
I think there's a clique in the Porsche world, rightly or wrongly. I don't think they consider the GTS as a GT car. I'd like to think they would, but I don't think in reality that's the case.
So the aero kit that came on your car, the factory aero kit, that's a different aero kit that comes on the Carrera S, right? Is it slightly different, or was it the same aero kit? Do you know?
I don't actually know. I know it is standard. That was spec'd from the factory like that. Although I would say from the factory, I think all these aero kits are fitted in the UK when they arrive, or the country of import. I think they're fitted after. More importantly, they are a Porsche OEM.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. They're the proper aero kit, which I still think is very. When you start putting aero in your car, you have to take into account, and you as in your field and profession, like the balance between the suspension, and brakes, and all aerodynamics, and all of that changes. So you have to make sure that it is the right one.
That's right.
Putting just a ducktail on the back of your 996 James at Auto Amateur doesn't always work.
I think it looks good though, don't you? I think it works. I like the look of it now.
Yeah, it does. I'm not James is going to hate me for saying this. I'm not a fan of the blue that he's picked.
No, I'm not either, to be honest.
It's too sapphire blue for me. I'm sorry. It's still I still see 991.1 Carrera S sapphire blue. I
remember when he first started that. I sent him a couple of pictures of one that I'd seen locally, and it looked amazing. I think it was a wrap, but it was like a cream wrap, satin wrap. And it had the headlights, which were smoked, and they took a completely different look on to the standard fried egg headlights, and it worked for me. It would have looked amazing.
Yeah, I mean, look with the Fuchs wheels and with the ducktail. I mean, it has a different stance about it. It definitely looks much better than it did before. It's still a nice looking car. Today I saw actually on Instagram, just sort of changing the subject, but I saw the color. There was a color of a 356. It could have been a Rod Emery 356. I'm not sure. No, it's actually people in the UK that I think are doing a car for Magnus Walker, I think I saw, and they had a color of a 356, and it's like this petrol blue. And I still think, and I remember when James was thinking about the color, and I sent him a color, and I think it should be more like those classic, and he said it was very hard to get the colors, it was very hard to get the paint, you know what I mean? But it's more like a petrol type blue. I think that color would have looked really good on it. And I think that's why Lee's one from Road to Renline, I think his green one looks good because Irish, it is in that green. Yeah, that Irish green just, it just does something.
Yeah.
So back to the GTS. So when did you buy it? You bought it in February, is that right?
I did this year,
February, March?
Yeah, I did. So as I said, it was a little bit early for me, but it came, I just happened to come down for breakfast one morning, and on Saturday morning I was scanning the different, I was looking at Porsche sites, and and because I wanted one with some provenance and some, obviously it's a lot of money, so I wanted some sort of safeguard that it would be, the car is going to be right. So I didn't mind paying the premium at a Porsche dealer if it came to it, if I had to source it from there. And this one came up, as I say, in the local. Honestly, this OPC is 20 minutes away. So I grabbed my wife. We were shot down and look at it, and I was sort of thinking, this is just going to go unless I pull a trigger on it. And so we did the deal then and there. So to do a bit of a creative accounting, if you know what I mean. But I made it. We had to make it happen. It was a long time coming.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because I think I asked you the question. I said, do you still have the 997? Do you still own the 997? And you said, no, you sold it, but you only sold it not that long ago, right?
No,
you
that's
didn't
right.
Sell it. So, because most people, when they're about to buy a new 911, and James in the Last Owner's Stories is a prime example of it, like where he sells the car ready for the next one, ready for the next purchase. Yeah. And I guess we have to justify this to our other halves and to our wives and all that to make sure that we're all in the good books.
Yeah.
So you, like you said, you did that without that, and that wasn't planned. That was just because literally the car came up, you didn't want to miss out, and you just decided, okay, I've got to take this one because this is not going to come up again that quickly. Yeah,
and sell the 99. I knew I'd get rid of the 997. I knew that would go. It's a good car. So it was a bit of a leap of faith, really. So I had to cover the shortfall, exactly.
Right. And when you bought the 991 and you took it home, when you picked it up from the dealer and you took it, obviously you took it for a test drive. What was the first difference you noticed, or the main thing you noticed to the 997 that you've been driving for the last few years?
Wow. Well, I think two things. It was the physical size of the car. They say there's not much difference in width, but I sense there is. Certainly with the wide body anyway. It was a much wider car than the standard 997 I had. But also the PDK gearbox was just light years away, different from the manual in the 997.
Right. Yeah. So better?
Yeah.
Or different?
Better in every way, I think, personally. I'm not hung up on. I'm not that much of a purist, and I would insist on a manual for the right car. I would have gone for a manual if the right spec had been there, but I had heard great things about the PDK, so it wasn't a big issue for me to buy into it straight away when I saw it. Plus, it has the paddles on it, so and I love the paddles.
Yeah.
I've got the car with paddles on. I enjoy using that.
Yeah, yours has that really nice steering wheel, the sports wheel. Barry has an Instagram as well. I don't know whether you want me to put that in the link of this podcast, Barry. I can.
Yeah, please.
So people can have a look at your cars. So I'll put Barry's link in, and you can check it out and check out his. There's pictures of the 997 on that, and there's also pictures of his GTS. So is I don't know whether this is a tricky question. It's something actually I'm interested in. The PDK in the GTS.
Yeah.
Is it programmed differently to the standard Carrera S? Or is it, how the GT3 RS has obviously a different PDK, different automatic, just the programming of it, isn't it? Does the GTS have a slightly different
profile? Not to my knowledge. Don't think it does, no. I can't really say definitively, to be honest with you, Michael.
Okay. And the GTS has the suspension on the GTS. It's PASM, it's slightly lower.
Yeah, it is lower, yeah. It has got PASM, yeah, that's right. Again,
it has got
yeah, it has. It's another option that was ticked, yeah.
And you notice a difference with the PASM compared to, did your Carrera S in 997 have the PASM?
It did actually. It did. That had PASM as well, yeah. So, yeah, but there is, I can't say I've used it in earnest, the PASM, since I've had it. I've only had it a couple of months, so jury's out on that still. But, yeah, it's got that option.
So apart from the PDK, that was the main difference when you jumped into it, you picked it up that day, and that was pretty much the main difference.
I mean, the performance was amazing. They are much faster cars, a full second faster than the 997. So yeah, it was just. It didn't actually put it. When I went to do the test drive. I didn't do a launch control or anything, don't get me wrong, but we went on just local roads and then a short blip on the motorway, and it was just instant power.
So obviously the GTS had a really good service history, and with dealers, with Porsche dealers, everything was intact. There was good history. How many owners did it have beforehand, your GTS?
That's got four previous too, but it's 22,000 miles on it, so it's not a great deal of miles. It's all full Porsche history, as you say. One other thing I think was important for me was not to go for. I was conscious that it's a 2016 car, so it's one of the very, very last GTSs made of the 991.1 first gen 991.1s. So because of that. I'd like to think it would hold its value a bit more than, because they obviously all went turbo, didn't they, in 16 after that, the 991.2. So I think for that, I have a degree of interest, obviously, in residuals. So I think because of the last of the normally aspirated cars, and because it's a GTS, I like to think they're a little bit more resilient to.
I think so.
Residuals.
I think so. I think even. Prices now, you see it, they haven't dropped that much, have they? They haven't depreciated that much compared to a Carrera S, a 991.1 Carrera S. The GTS has really held its value. It really is a pretty good investment, and I think you're right. The naturally aspirated, last of the naturally aspirated, wide body, all of that comes into it, and it's a really nice looking car. But I think really, if you have the money and you're looking at a 991, I really do think you should stretch and get the GTS instead of the Carrera S. I wouldn't buy a base 991 Carrera. I would skip the base 991.
James is going to love you, isn't he?
Yeah, he's going to love me for that. But I have been looking at it. I mean, Andrew from Atlanta, who was on a previous owner's stories, 911 South, he bought the 991 Carrera S 0.1. Yeah. But he's someone that does a lot of mods to his car and a lot of things that he changes, and he's gonna reprogram the ECU and map it and whatever and get more power.
Right.
But I think if you're looking for a 991 and like what you've done, I think you would actually choose to go to the GTS if you can spread it, and also because of the value, the future values. I think what you've just said, Barry, is actually pretty true. You know what I mean? The future values will be pretty strong on that car. Where else? Where are we? Oh, okay. So on the 997. The 997, you did quite a few mods to your car.
Yeah.
Are you planning to do anything with the GTS? Is there anything you want to do to it? Is there anything that needs to be done to it?
I think we all like to sort of personalise our cars to a degree without losing value, obviously. I'm no Magnus Walker, but I do want to do a few things to it. And to that end, I have done a few things, but I've got to be mindful of the warranty on this car, because Porsche warranty is notoriously they're a real stickler, aren't they, for any deviation from standard. So I've limited the few things I have done to purely cosmetics at this stage.
So with Porsche warranty, you really can't do much at all, though, can you?
No. Really
it's under warranty. You really can't, because they will void your warranty, correct?
Yes, that's right. I think I had a conversation with the guy at the showroom just before I left, and he advised me not to do anything, obviously. But he said, I don't think they're as stickler as sticky on it as they used to be. But I think if you have anything that's related to the fault that occurs, then they will void the warranty. But I mean, if you've put a a diffuser on the back and the engine, and something happens with the engine, I don't think that'll be an issue. It's purely cosmetic.
But honestly, what would you want to do to it? I mean, you can put a decal on the side if you want, I guess. But there's not much you really want to do to make it better, right? It's pretty perfect from the images I've seen and the spec you have. It's pretty much spot on.
Yeah, I've done a few things though. The door sill threshold plates, which are similar on the 997s.
Yep.
I've had those carbon coated, sort of
okay.
Yeah, so it's I think is it called hydro coated? They were local companies. But it's
how does that work?
Yeah.
So you didn't replace them with OEM carbon sills.
No, I didn't like them, the carbon sills. I think James has done them, and
yes,
on the original sill he's put on the new sill. First of all, he destroyed the old ones, getting them off, and I've managed.
Yes.
I didn't do that. I managed to get them off, clean off the adhesive, and it was fine. So I could. Okay. I can put the same ones back on, because that was important to me. And plus, I've had them coated right along both edges, both full length of each sill. So it's a paint process and a lacquer, and I've matched it to the carbon that's inside the car, because it's got carbon pack too, by the way.
Okay, Barry. Sorry. So it's on the sill plate or it's on the inner door?
Both.
Where is it? Oh, it's on both.
Both inner and outer door sills. Yeah.
Did you take a photo of that? There's no photo of that, right?
I can send you one. I've got pictures.
Okay.
Yeah,
that sounds really interesting. So that's done in the UK. Is that an expensive process?
It's done everywhere.
Is it?
Yeah, it is. Because I remember James mentioning it on one of his. He sent some components away to be done. I think he sent that there was a finisher on the rear edge of the doors of the door.
Right.
And he had those.
Oh, I thought they were just purchased carbon parts from DB Carbon or one of those stores that sell the carbon parts. I didn't realize that they're actually coated.
Well, I think he's mentioned it. I think those possibly could have been, but he mentioned it in the same episode that you can send them away to get coated, and they replace them or they return the original ones.
Well, that's interesting.
And this guy was local, so I took a punt because they were significantly cheaper than the OEM part.
And how's the carbon match up with inside? Is it a good match?
Very good, yeah. I took a piece of carbon from the ignition surround, which is fairly easy to get off.
Yes,
and,
very easy.
I took it in and he matched it perfectly.
The carbon inside that's standard, is that matte or gloss? I can't remember. What's OEM Porsche carbon? Gloss or matte?
Yeah, gloss. Yeah. So I had two sills done, inner and outer sills on both sides, and I also had the fuse box covers done, because there's certainly on the 991 there are two sets of fuse boxes, one in the passenger side footwell and one in the driver's side. So those are done as well.
All right, fantastic.
Yeah, they look really good. Yeah. Again, I can't see for a second that being an issue for Porsche warranties.
Yeah, no, that wouldn't be an issue at all. That was the part that I just can't bear to do in leather. I was going to. I have this little joke with someone else about this, but I could have actually got it done in leather through the guy in the UK, but I just thought I'm just not going to notice it, so I just didn't do it.
Yeah, I mean, if I'd have had it didn't have carbon pack, I wouldn't have done them in carbon. I would have lived with it, or maybe put leather on it, as you say. But I also had them PPF'd as well, so it protects the paint. Because obviously you're going to, at some point, somebody will scuff them with the feet. So they'll offer some protection, hopefully.
Yeah. No, I can see them working in carbon actually with the carbon interior. I can actually see it working really well. So what else apart from the carbon? Anything else?
I've put a Tech Art diffuser on the rear. I quite like the look of that Tech Art diffuser on the 991.
Right.
So that's a part which I do have colour coded and painted, and again that's just 4 screws and it's affixed to the back bumper. So again, it wouldn't affect the warranty. It's purely cosmetic. I can send.
So it's not.
I can send.
I can see it. I can see it. Okay. So what was the part there before? What was the?
It's nothing.
Plastic.
There's nothing there. It's just the bumper. Just the.
Oh, so it just fits
over it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it looks good.
Yeah.
And I noticed your back brake lights are clear as well. They're not actually.
Again, that was not something I did though. It's not something I would expect, I don't think, but they have grown on me. They were like that when I bought the car. the white clear indicator. When you've got them on, by the way, I think there's a few other pictures. I think one of the most recent pictures. I'm in the middle of a photo shoot at the moment. I'm having this. I'm having the car professionally photo shot. There's a couple, and one of the first pictures that have gone up on the Instagram is the one.
Oh, really?
Hopefully you've seen it.
Oh, okay, that one. That's a great shot, actually.
Yeah.
Okay, so everyone that's listening, if you go to Barry's Instagram, you can look at this while we're talking. It's Bazza BAZZA 8688. So Bazza BAZZA 8688. So just go to Barry's Instagram and you can see it. Yeah, it's a great shot. Where's that taken?
Yeah,
that's taken in.
It's in Manchester. It's in Manchester. I live in the northwest of England, yeah. So I live above Manchester, near the lakes, near the Lake District, and
nice.
Rochdale. So, but that was a trip into town, and near, it was, and of course, in the minute there's a lockdown, so there's not much traffic around, so it was great. We had a good photo session last Friday. One of the guys in the club, he's a professional photographer. Yeah,
it's a great shot.
Well,
it's a very good shot.
And the point is with that shot, of course, you can't tell those are clear real lights. Once the lights are on, they look as red as any other.
I have to be honest, I'm not sure if I'm a fan of the clear rear lights.
No.
I mean, I don't know. Sometimes I think it's better when it has a bit of color. I don't think they look terrible, but I don't know, looking at your 997 with the red, I don't know. I always feel like it needs a bit of color at the back of the car.
Yeah. And I think
you've got to.
You can always wrap those, couldn't I, though? With them being white, I could put some translucent red film on them. And
you could
get it that way. It's not something.
See, I'm also a little bit weird about this. I'm not a big fan of the tinted lights either. The tinted rear. You know how you can get that option from Porsche where you can get the tinted rear lights and the tinted front headlights.
Yeah.
Not a big fan of that.
That's standard on the GTS though. The headlights are dark.
Your headlights are good. They've got the black rim, right?
So they've got the black rim, but they are darker lights too. They are darker. They are a darker film on the GTS than they are on the darker lens than they are on the standard Carrera.
Barry has a very good, when you go to his Instagram, he has a very good number plate as well. I'm a big fan of good number plates. You got a great number plate there, Barry.
I actually bought that, Michael.
That's well worth it.
I bought it 2 years before I bought the car. So
really?
Yeah, that's how much I knew I was going to get a GTS.
So you didn't have a choice. You had to buy it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Once you get the number plate, you have to buy it. That's it. Right. Okay, so is there anything, I don't know if I should say this because it's only a new car, is there anything that you've found that you're not so keen about with the GTS? Is there anything that's bugging you at the moment that sort of like niggles at you?
No,
or is everything pretty good?
I'm completely besotted with it. I love it. It's absolutely great in every department. I've not found a problem with it. I hope I don't, but no, I can't fault it. I cannot fault it. It's amazing.
And there was that crossover period. I just want to go back really quickly. The crossover period when you had the 997 and the GTS, were you tempted there for a second to think, oh, maybe I could keep the 997 as well?
You've not met my wife, have you? We had a conversation since. I think she struggled driving it, whereas she doesn't at all with the GTS. So, so I thought, and I think it's certainly in these times we're living in at the minute, I think it's a bit ostentatious to have two Porsches on my drive. I felt that way anyway. So,
I kind of, even though I'm talking about it myself, and I kind of agree with you, and I keep going back to this being sensible thing. It's kind of like at the moment, and the conditions we're in, and the uncertainty with everything. Yeah. It kind of feels a little bit weird having more than one. Yeah. It doesn't mean we're not going to get another one, and I'm sure. And I was going to get onto that actually, but it doesn't mean we're not going to buy another 911. And I think it's good to have one. I think it's good to have two. I think obviously a water cooled and an air cooled, a modern and an air cooled is the perfect. Even though people tell me I'm crazy, I should get a 911. I still want to get a 912.
I like the
912. Ajmal in the UK is like tempting me no end with his blue one, and now he's just brought it home and he wants to have a chat about it.
Right.
And I think his looks great from a distance. I know it's not perfect, but I think that's, it looks good. So if you were going to get a second 911, let's just think it's not COVID times. Yeah. What would you think about getting? What is something that's on your list? And I know there's probably a few.
I've got two. I'd love a GT3. A 991.
GT3?
991.2 GT3, because again, it's the normally aspirated engine,
Yes.
and the sound is more important to me on these cars than the performance. To be honest, I love again, another reason I went for the 16 plate GTS, not the 17, because that sound, that I just think it's just nothing like it.
Yeah, I agree.
So GT3 991.2 GT3 ideally, or I love the 993s.
The 993, yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I love them.
Standard Carrera or Carrera S 993?
Just the standard Carrera, that would do me. I think it is so pretty a car, a lovely car.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the 993 is a really good one.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? James on the last PorscheCooled Owner Stories, if you listen to it, Barry,
I do.
he said that he had the 993 and then he bought the 98 996 and he found the 98 996 better than the 993.
It's hard that, isn't it? You wouldn't think so,
I said that's going to divide opinions, I'm sure, when people hear that.
With it being an older car, that is...
Yeah. So, but I think that the 993 is a great one. I mean... It's always that toss-up, isn't it, between the 993 and a 964? It's always those two. But I think when you read into it more, you wouldn't get a 964 Carrera 4 because there's a lot of issues, I think, with the four-wheel drive system, with the all-wheel drive system.
Right.
I think. And then the 964 has other issues as well. And someone told me, I'm not sure what they were, but it has other issues as well, the 964 Carrera 2. So the 993 is a more reliable one to get.
Yeah.
And it's slightly more modern, and it's got a great shape. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was always the prettier one. I mean, when the 993 came out, people sort of forgot about the 964 very quickly.
Yeah.
And the 993 was definitely the prettier one. I like the idea of the 60s ones, the 65 to 69.
Yeah.
I mean, the 911s... as you know, in that era, are way out of the price. For me, it's just too much money. I wouldn't spend that much money. It seems 912s are getting up there as well. I was watching a really good one on Bring a Trailer a couple of nights ago, Burgundy one.
Yeah.
And it sold for $50,000 US plus the fees. So what's that, about $53,000 US? Yeah. So they're getting up there. They really are.
What colour was the trim on that, on the Burgundy? Because only a few think would work.
It was black.
Black, okay, yeah.
Yeah, it was actually, a few Burgundies have come up, and there's a couple of sellers on Bring a Trailer, one called Wob and one called 911R, who actually, and then another guy called Tarek. They always have a lot of Porsches. Mm-hmm. If you're looking on Bring a Trailer in the US, they always sell a lot of Porsches. They're very well respected. Yeah. But it was sitting at 25,000 for a long while, and then it was at 45, and then one guy just came in with a 50,000 bid. Someone in Europe. I guess a lot of these people maybe not even be people that are buying it for themselves. Maybe they're buying it to resell. Obviously European prices are much higher. Pounds prices are much higher. I mean, Ajmal didn't hide it. He paid, £30,000 for his blue one, which is, it's not cheap.
No, it isn't.
It's not cheap. All right. So have you had a chance, Barry, to go on any long drives? I know it's been COVID and everything's been sort of locked down and...
No, I had a plan to, but it didn't happen. We wanted to do North Coast 500 in Scotland, around Scotland, but so it'll have to be put off hopefully until next year. So I've been. Have you
taken your 911 on roads in Scotland before? Your old 911?
No, I haven't actually. I've taken around Wales and Yorkshire Dales and the Lake District near me, but not gone as far as. The North Coast. For
drives, for people coming to the UK who come here and they want to get a car or they want to drive their car in the UK, are there roads around near where you live that you would recommend, or would you say go to Wales, go to Scotland?
I would say you've got to see the Lake District, but go midweek because it can get busy at weekends. Okay. But Lake District is beautiful, and further afield, you can't do any worse than Scotland. Scotland's amazing, and Mid Wales as well. Yeah, there's some beautiful parts of the UK which I'm committed to taking the car to. Fantastic.
So what else? So that's the GT. That's the GTS.
Yeah.
So you've had two. You're going to keep this one for a while. You might add an air cool to it in the future.
Who knows?
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
If one comes up, 993s are not getting any cheaper though.
No,
that's the other thing.
No.
They're going up and up and up, aren't they?
I don't think I'll. This is a keeper for me, the GTS, unless the right GT3 comes up. I can't see myself letting go of this. It's such a special spec and special car, And it seemed
Yeah.
to have my name on it as I walked in. I think you do know that. Sometimes when you walk into a showroom or you see a car, sometimes it just happens, doesn't it? And you think it's got my name on this, so you've got to go with your heart sometimes.
So what other cars do you own, Barry? You own other cars as well? Or just the 911?
No, we've got a BMW 4 Series, which 420, which has the paddles, which is something I like. And we've got a small VW Scirocco as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. I mean, like you were saying about the 991.2 GT3, I think that's the one we all sort of aspire to. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a big fan of the 997 GT3 because obviously Steve has one and his is fantastic, 0.1 or 0.2. But if you could stretch it, I think that, we both always say the 991.2 GT3 in manual is just is the pinnacle. And all the videos you watch about it, all the people that have been driving it on YouTube, all the recognized people, just think it's fantastic, and it just looks so good. They're keeping their price though. I don't know how they are in the UK. In Australia, they're still very high.
Yeah.
They're still around in Australian dollars, they're about 330 to 350,000, which is close to what they sold for new. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's still up there. So they haven't dropped yet. Maybe when the 992 comes out, and now the 992 GT3, what do you think of that wing that they're doing?
Yeah, it's obscene, isn't it?
It is a bit, isn't it? That swan neck, and it's definning happening. That is it.
No, I'm not a fan. I've got to be honest. I just can't get my head around the back, the tail lights of the new 992. It's sort of grown on a lot of people, but for me, I'm still struggling with it.
Yeah, I hated it in the beginning. I was the same, and I mentioned this before. I did hate it, but now I've seen a couple of them. I think it looks pretty good. I actually think the taillights at the back actually look better on the cab. For some reason, it kind of works better with the cab, with the line of the cab. Yeah. So what else, Barry?
I've got a friend getting a turbo, so maybe I've changed my mind when I see that. A Turbo S.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, that's right, yeah.
A turbo or Turbo S?
He's getting a Turbo S. Yeah, I think he's getting it in the new year, yeah.
Wow. He knows how fast it is, right?
It's unusable, isn't it? And then there's, it's not going to sound as good as mine, is it? So I'm going to give it some stick about that.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. The videos I've seen on it doesn't sound.
No.
It sounds okay, but it doesn't. It's not naturally aspirated. No, it definitely isn't. But it's a beautiful looking car, though. I have to say.
Yeah.
Do you know what color he spec'd it in?
I think he said he's gone for white with a red trim. Yeah,
the white turbo. I mean, in my building in Bahrain, there's the guy has a white 991 turbo.
Yeah,
and even that one, it's a nice looking shape. It really is a nice shape. It really does have a nice look about it, a nice stance about it. Yeah. But I still prefer I think the GTS or the GT3 would be the better option. But, I mean, I can see why people buy Turbo S. They are very popular, and they seem to hold their value reasonably okay as well in future values.
Yeah.
All right, Barry.
Okay.
Anything else you want to mention in the podcast before we...
I do, yeah. You mentioned some time ago, I was laughing to myself. You referred to Steve.
What did I say?
Yeah, well, you couldn't get your head around a particular website, which... you couldn't, for the life of you and Steve, being both Aussies, you couldn't understand why this website was called what it was. And it was I Say Ding Dong. Do you remember?
Oh, yeah. I Say Ding Dong. The sticker guy.
The sticker guy, yeah. So I
bought a lot from him, actually.
Yeah, I have as well, yeah. But so a little bit of education.
Okay, this is a good one. For the listeners that don't know, I Say Ding Dong has got all the stickers, the Hoya stickers, the Steve McQueen solar stickers. I think I've done 3 orders with the guy.
I've done a few, yeah.
Because they're cheap and they're really good quality. They're great, yeah.
I've never heard of them until you mentioned it. So as soon as I went on that and I saw the logo, I thought, I realised. And it stems back to a 60s UK sort of... Do you remember the Carry On films? Did you ever see those?
Yes.
So there was a guy in there, a couple of guys, Terry Thomas, old actors, Terry Thomas, and another guy called Leslie Phillips, who always played. These guys were sort of lounge lizards, Lotharios, old guys. And whenever they'd meet a young lady, their reaction was, I say ding dong. That was,
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's where it comes
that's
from.
where it comes from, yeah.
I tell you what, that guy that owns that sticker shop,
Yeah.
he's got a good sense of humor then. You know what I mean?
Yes,
Like,
yeah, yes.
really has.
That's where it's come from. Trust me.
It's funny. Oh, that's fantastic. That's funny. It's funny you mention the carrot.
You've got to say it with
It's
the UK
funny-
accent, I think.
Yeah, no, I say ding dong.
Yeah.
I just like saying it. I remember, you know what? I saw that site. It's been around for a long time. That website.
Was it?
It's not new because when I went to it, when I was looking for those stickers and I found it, and then I remembered seeing it years ago. You know, he's been around for quite some time, but it's for the listeners who are listening. If you haven't been to it, I say ding dong, go to it. It's got great stickers and they're cheap and they're really good quality and they're good on the side windows of your Porsche. It's funny you mentioned the Carry On films. You remember the show Bless This House?
Yeah, with Sid James. Yeah.
Sid James, you know the son in Bless This House?
Yes.
The dark hair, long hair, the
Yeah,
one
yeah.
that was he actually moved to Australia.
Really? Did
And
he?
when I was 15, I worked in a supermarket, as you did in a country town.
Yeah.
And he actually lived outside, and he used to come to the supermarket all the time. And as a kid, it was like, wow,
Yeah.
it's like the first celebrity.
Wow, yeah.
It's a funny weird story, but that was like the first celebrity you ever seen. It was like he was so cool, you know. But he lived outside a place called Wyong, where I used to live in Australia, where I was brought up. Anyway, thanks for that, Barry. That's good.
Well,
I have to tell Steve about that. Oh, he'll listen to the podcast, but I'll have to tell Steve about that one.
yeah. So if you YouTube Terry Thomas or Leslie Phillips, I'm sure you'll come across. You'll come
Yeah,
across
yeah,
it.
that's great. That's great.
So
But
don't know. The last Porsche owner story you had on, I thought, crikey, how am I going to follow that? Because that guy was really into his track days, wasn't he? And so, don't know. I hope your listeners have found it interesting.
no, it's good. No, your story's great. It's a good story. Like I said, I've been wanting, you know, I don't think I originally said to you, do you want to come on to it? Because I always get a bit hesitant that people are a bit scared to come on or they don't want to come on and talk about, you know, people are private, so some people don't want to come on.
Yeah.
But I always wanted to have you on because just to talk about the GTS. And like I said, I never didn't talk about the GTS because I didn't like it. It's just because I don't know much about it. And in my head, I'm thinking 912s and I'm thinking GT3s at the moment. So I'm kind of, and someone said to me the other day, you never talk about turbos either. You know what I mean? You never talk about the turbo 996 or 997, which I kind of have. But I think the GTS is a great model. Like I said, Nick from the First Owner Stories, who I'm friends with, who lives in the UK, he's looking for one. I think he's trying to find one to test drive, and I think it's in PDK. Sorry, Nick, I can't remember. So he's looking for one. So it's on people's radar. And I think the one you have is because it's only going to it's not going to lose value. It's only going to increase in value or hold value.
Yeah, I don't know where
sure.
Nick is in the UK, but if he's in the north of England, you can drop me a line on Instagram. Maybe we could look at this. But
He's man, my memory. Nick's going to kill me. He's from the north, but I think he's down south now. Sorry, Nick,
okay.
if I've got it wrong.
All
It's
right.
one or the other, Nick. I know.
Okay. All right. Well, anyway, he knows how to
I'll
find
tell
me.
you-
He's got an
Yeah,
offer to.
I'll tell you after we stop recording, but just so I don't mention where he lives on where he is in the podcast.
Okay.
What else? That's great, Barry. Good story. Yeah, James's story last week is a bit different because James has been, you know, because he has been buying those cup cars and he has been selling those cup cars. But I'm going to get James is because James is in Melbourne and he's got a lot of Porsche stories. I might get him on again and talk about air-cooled because I know he's got a lot of
He's
interesting stories about air-cooled and knowledge, which I think he could share
absolutely
with,
really knows
with everyone else.
Knows his onions, doesn't he? Definitely.
Yep. But that's a great story, Barry. It's really good. Thank you so much for being on. And this is Sunday. If everyone's wondering whether we're recording this on a Sunday evening, so Barry's taken time out on his Sunday, his rest day. So I really appreciate that, Barry. Thank you.
No, it's my pleasure, Michael, and lots of luck with the podcast. Keep them coming. Well, I really enjoy them.
Oh, that's good.
And I think you're doing a lot for the Porsche community, which is the main thing. And just keep, especially as through this time we're going through now, I think it's really good what you're doing.
Thank you, Barry. That's really that's great. Thank you so much. Sometimes you don't know how good or bad it is. You know what I mean? It's very.
It's good.
It's there's not a lot of you don't get a lot of feedback with podcasts. You get, you know, that's why it's always great to talk to you and to talk to other people who have been reaching out to me and just chatting about it. It's always good to know.
Well, it's just like you're walking into a pub and you come across your mates and they're talking cars, and I feel like I'm just joined a conversation when I listen to your podcast.
Fantastic.
So and I think that's what you're trying to aim for, isn't it? So it's great.
Yeah, we're just, sometimes I get in trouble. People say that I don't give the correct information, but it's just, we're enthusiasts. I keep saying it. We're just chatting.
Yeah,
we're just, we're just enjoying ourselves and just chatting. And like you said, during these times, it's actually good to have a global Porsche community. You know what I mean? It's like a global Porsche and coffee, or cars and coffee, and we just sort of chat, and that's what's great about it. And Steve and I are really enjoying it. And Steve, I know Steve in the beginning, he was a little bit hesitant because he's quite a private person.
He is. He's a bit more reserved, isn't he? I think.
Yeah, he's a private person, but he's really enjoying it as well, and it's great. So thanks so much, Barry. I really appreciate you sharing that today. It's been good.
No, my best wishes to Steve as well, please.
Yep. And I will put the link to your Instagram in the description of the podcast.
Yep.
And anyway, thanks everyone. Thanks for listening to the PorscheCooled podcast. This was PorscheCooled Owner Stories, and this was what is Barry? I think he's number 9.
Oh,
number
right,
9.
okay.
Barry's number 9. Number 9 of the PorscheCooled Owner Stories. Number 6 on Patreon. Anyway, thanks everyone. Thanks for listening, and bye for now.